All right, so you can see from yesterday, I changed the box a little bit. I added a texture to it by carving into the walls, which kind of cleaned it up a little bit, made it look more purposeful. So now I'm going to make a lid out of this. It is one solid. It's a hollow box, right? But there's no opening, so I need to cut a lid. First thing I want to do is actually make a handle for for the top. So I want something that's going to kind of match what the pot is, you know. You don't want to stick something like that on there. And never do I ever want you to put a ball of clay on a pot for a lid. Right? Promise me that. I don't want to have to fail you on principle. Right? Just don't put a little ball of clay. Do something else. Anything. I'm just kind of playing around with this until I figure out what I want to do. I have an idea. I'm going to use this as just a curve. And I've kind of squared it. It's more of a strap kind of handle. I don't need a big handle to go on here, right? It's a small pot. It's a small lid. So I could do it. That might work better. Yeah, I think I like turning it at an angle. Don't know. Not sure what you guys can see, but you'll get it in the video. All right, so I have that. I'm gonna smooth some of those cracks out. Now that I have this, I think I want to make it. I know this is smooth, but this has that fluted texture all the way around. I think I want to add that to this. Repetition's usually a good design feature. I think 3 should be enough. So now I've cut that, all right? I line this up. I still want this, to really be part of the center. I want to hit the corners. Even though this box is not 100% square, it's close enough that it makes a difference. I'm going to mark where this is going to go. core. I definitely had to let this box sit up, right? So it got drier in order to do what all this stuff that I'm doing. Even the cutting out, the fluting on the sides, like that, I had to wait until it was a little bit drier than when I first made it. Because when I first made it, I mean, really, it was pretty wet. So, I mean, usually when I make handles and things like that, or I mean, I guess I I go through a process with the handles. Like I make several different things and end up either liking, not liking, until I find the one that I want. I feel like if you're making something by hand, and that includes like wheel work, handles and knobs should make a statement, right? It should be more than just, sometimes simplicity is great, but I mean, this, so I could have put on a pot like this is like a mixing bowl. I could have put a regular handle on there, but I wanted to try something different. So this, now you can hold on to that and still pour it, right? So that's, and it, again, and this is just a simple strap handle, right? But it's following the same kind of texture and pattern that's on the pot. There's a lot of ways to do things. So, if you're going for more of a knob type, I tend to go pretty organic, and things look like, trees, rocks, logs, whatever, anything that's not so geometric, right? It's more organic, I tend to like. So, and it's a nice little contrast to the pot usually. So I like that. All right, so that's my little knob, right? It's got a little space under there. Sure it's even, right? Sometimes you just gotta try things, and I'm not worried. Like when I make a knob and stuff, when I make these things, I end up going through a few of them usually. Like this one, just kind of got lucky. I just like it, and it's okay. So now I just added a little more detail. All right, so now I'm making the lid. First, I need a really sharp knife, so I'm using an X-Acto knife, which is pretty much the sharpest knife I have. I'm also going to use my pen tool. Now, if you don't have an X-Acto knife, you need to find something that's, a nice thin, sharp blade. And thin being the key, right? You don't want it super thick. You can be sharp, but if it's really thick, you're going to be taking away too much material from the pot. And a pen tool, or if you're using paper clips or whatever it is you use to draw on clay, something that you can draw a straight line, like the end of a paper clip works great. Let's see, one more. Now I use a nice straight edge. Now normally, like, you can measure and you can cut. Normally I would probably just draw the lines without doing it. That's just me. But I mean, you could go about this in different ways. Okay, so you can be kind of loose with it, and your line doesn't have to be straight across. Okay, like just going straight is fine. Some people it's going to work, But what if you angle it, or have a line that kind of just kind of goes around, right? I mean, there are ways to look at it. For this particular box, I don't think like a really loose line going around, like one that kind of like a wave almost, probably isn't going to work for this design wise, because this already has all these hard angled lines. And I mean, I think probably a straighter line would work, but I could also, change it. It can still work with this design, or it could just be straight across. That really depends on what you guys are going for. I'm just gonna, I'll draw the first couple of lines and then see if I change my mind. All right, so I'm just laying it on its side. Now you can't let these sit closed up for too long, because they're, the air inside will start to constrict, and the pot will end up breaking. So you want to do this like as soon as you get the pot ready. So I could take this and I could really make a nice even line this way, but I think I want to make it. Yeah, that works. Just gonna draw my line straight across. All right, so now I have a line. That's where my lid would be, right? Again, I can change it. I can add. I could make like a triangle here or a triangle down. It's really up to you what you want to do. I'm just gonna stick with this for simplicity and getting this demo over with. Right? So now I have a line. Now I have a knife. So this is, if straight up and down, or like this, straight up and down, it's not going to do it. But if you hold it flat and just cut straight across, the clay is just going to still be there, and it's going to slide off of each other. So what you want to do, if this is the wall of your pot, right, and you're cutting, you want to cut if you cut at a nice, almost 45-degree angle, like that leaves two parts that are going to fit back together when you do this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, probably glasses. The hardest part is holding the same angle, right? Going around these corners. We'll see how it ends up. But I really don't want to mess with it too much after I'm finished. that turned out pretty good. All right, so now that I've cut this, you can see, how it's gonna fit back together, right? And you see that edge and this edge, they help support it and keep it in place. So I really don't want to mess around with that edge at all, really. I mean, I want to clean it up a little bit, and just take some of the roughness down, but you really don't want to damage the angle that you have, right? Because you cut it in a certain way, and that's the way it needs to stay. What? So I can just kind of dust off I don't want the edges to be super sharp either, right? Now I'm also keeping it, I'm gonna have to make some kind of little mark here. I mean, shouldn't be too hard to figure out where it goes, but alright, so I'm kind of looking for a spot that if I put two marks, one way that you can do it, and this might work. If I had a small All right, so this will work. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sort of push and turn a little so that I'm overlapping It was a good idea, but poor execution. Could carve it out. Now, the reason I'm doing it, this is just a way to line up the pot easily. Because if it all looks the same, then you're like, doesn't fit this way. But if you have a little mark on both the lid and the pot, then it's easy to put it together. Probably should have done this before I cut the lid. I didn't really think about it. So, and there's other ways to do this, but I mean it still works. I'll clean that up better. But so now I just kind of, if I can get that flatter so that it's very consistent, just a circle, that gives you a spot that says this and this fit together, right? Now, if you take a little sponge or something and clean this up, just make sure you're not moving the walls around too much, because, and it's a good idea to, the only reason this works, right, is because I've dried, this pot is drier than it needs. You know, it's not like when I first made it. If I tried it then, this would have never worked. I wouldn't have gotten a clean cut. And even now, I mean, the cut could be better, but that's on me. That's not the clay's fault, right? But the cut's straight. You know, the angle's pretty good. You can't just like plow through there, right? Because you'll tear up your corners. So I had to really kind of work my way around the corners, you know, to get this to work. But let's just take a little sponge. Just taking the rough sharpness off that without like, I'm just gonna look at do the same thing here. I just don't want any rough edges. Now this will, if it's dry enough, I don't have to put anything between these, right? So they won't re-stick together. I definitely don't want that to happen. Now, if yours is a little wetter and you're afraid that it will, then you can put a piece of newspaper in between. Just don't push it around too much. Like, you want the newspaper just to kind of fit in there. But I'm not worried about this one, right? That's fine. Now, I can also, you know, at this point I can cut a nice little bevel on the bottom, right, to give it some lift. Do that all the way around. We've talked about that before. This one doesn't need a lot, just a little. Needs a little more than that. Smooth that out. And that's, you know, making a box or turning a box at making a lid out of the pot itself, right? And it's a good way to make nice lids. Okay, you guys have any questions?